It is another weather impact day as thunderstorms remain possible through the night when the next round of heavy rain moves through coming up. But some are getting those heavy downpours right now, especially up toward Butler and Warren counties. So you've got three little downpours moving through at the moment. First, starting with the one up further north, closer to Trenton. You've got some heavy rain, no thunder or lightning with this at this point, but that's still a possibility for the rest of the evening. Mason, right now you're getting poured on with that heavy rain moving out of Liberty Center and moving out of Westchester and now impacting the Mason area. That's going to keep on pushing off to the north and east. So eventually Hillcrest and Lebanon, you'll start to see some of that rain making its way into your neck of the woods too, and then areas off to the east of that, just outside of Morrow, closer to Butlerville and Blackhawk and even Hicks too, you'll start to see some of that heavy rain moving in. But right now, it's really the eastern side of Morrow that's seeing some of that heavy rain. Through the rest of tonight, we still have to hold on to the potential for some heavy rain throughout the greater Cincinnati area. We are still looking at some additional development, especially once we get into the overnight time frame that has the potential to bring some heavy rainfall our way while we sleep into tomorrow morning. Areas that I think are most likely to see that heavy rain threat: Kentucky, southeastern Indiana, and then areas throughout southwest Ohio as well, essentially along I-71, I-75, and then to the south and east as well, just along the AA highway there, Brown County over toward Adams County. Certainly could see some heavy rain moving in here tonight. So right now we're kind of getting the break in the action, but overnight we start to see some redevelopment with thunderstorms that look to pull into the area here tonight, again, while most of us are sleeping. The time frame likely between about 11 o'clock, maybe midnight, or possibly even later than that into early tomorrow morning. And these are going to be some heavy downpours that roll through. For some communities, you could pick up closer to about 3 inches of rainfall tonight alone. So coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you the timeline for when this is going to start to move out and that steamy air that has yet to really kind of take its full effect coming up in a few. Ashley, as we head into the overnight time frame, so I'm talking about the potential for some flooding while you sleep tonight as well as tomorrow morning. Coming up here in a few minutes. You're watching Cincinnati's WLWT News 5, and we'll be right back in here. Excuse me. Got to get that out of the way before this forecast. All right, so as we go through the rest of today, still going to see some showers and some thunderstorms developing here this afternoon. This evening, it's a possibility as well, but overnight is the time frame that we're really going to be watching very closely, because that's when it looks like we start to see heavy rain, potentially training thunderstorms moving into the greater Cincinnati area. That brings us the threat for some flooding while you sleep. So this is something that, again, we're going to be watching really closely over the next several hours. Right now, Middletown, you're still seeing some light rainfall. We've also got some light rain that just moved outside of Mason, outside of Kings Island as well. If you know anybody at the park this afternoon, probably a couple of showers. No lightning though, so that's some good news. Middletown, still seeing that light rain, as I mentioned. Further to the south and east, here's that rainfall that just moved out of Mason and away from the Kings Island Park and then over toward Lebanon. That's going to start to move into your direction here. It does have some more moderate pockets with it, some tropical downpours, certainly a possibility. South Lebanon, you're just kind of on the tail of that, a little bit lighter for you. And then over toward Clarksville, moving into Clinton County, you've got some additional rain that's going to be rolling through here fairly soon. A good healthy downpour is going to be moving through that area here in the next couple of minutes. Tonight, what we're going to be watching for very closely is any sort of redevelopment, and that's going to bring that potential for some heavy rain, which has the flood threat for us here tonight, because it looks like we've been talking about totals being around 1 to 3 inches, but what potentially could happen tonight is we end up seeing some communities picking up 1 to 3 inches, possibly closer to that 3-inch margin tonight alone. So that would lead to some high water concerns for the overnight time frame while it's dark outside, and then into tomorrow morning as well as you're heading out the door to get out to work. So that flood threat for us here tonight. At this point, we don't have any sort of flood watch or flash flood watch in effect for the greater Cincinnati area. That could change over the next couple of hours. We'll have to kind of wait and see what the National Weather Service decides to do with all this information. But as we head through the evening time frame, for the most part, this is kind of the quiet period that we have. Still could see an isolated shower or stray thunderstorm moving through the area, but then tonight, as we get closer to that overnight time frame, really midnight, possibly even later than that, that's when we start to see those heavy tropical downpours moving through. That's what brings that flood threat for us here as we head into the overnight time frame. Tomorrow morning as well, I think as early as about 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, we still have that potential for some thunderstorms to bring in some heavy rainfall. Then the rest of your Wednesday really looks really steamy outside. So the areas that are most likely at this point with the way things look, there are still some kind of question marks with this, but right now, with all the latest information we have, looks like areas throughout southeastern Indiana, Kentucky, and then some portions of southwest Ohio, including the Cincinnati metro up toward Mason and Middletown, has the greatest potential for that flood threat here overnight tonight. Again, those totals could be as much as 1 to 3 inches for the overnight alone into tomorrow morning too. Once the rain starts to wrap up tomorrow, that happens during the middle of the day, if not sooner, it gets really steamy outside. We're talking about heat indices tomorrow, possibly reaching up to about 95 with our real temperature hitting 87 degrees for the high temperature tomorrow. 95 though is how hot it's going to feel outside to you. So if you want to get out to the pool, it's a possibility with the fact that right now it looks like that rain wraps up tomorrow afternoon, but it's still going to be just incredibly muggy outside, really steamy out there as well. And then throughout the rest of the week, that steamy air is going to stick around. We have that chance for some rainfall on Thursday, mainly Thursday night, really. But with that too, looks like some of those heat indices actually could reach into the upper 90s. High temperature new just in, we have a flood watch in effect. I'm timing out our thunderstorm threat and the heavy rain potential on this weather impact day and night coming up. Watch that's in effect for some areas throughout greater Cincinnati tonight, not because of what's happening right now, but what's expected to come for the overnight time frame. So right now we still have some of those downpours impacting Warren County, now starting to move into Clinton County as well, just outside of Clarksville, and some rainfall over toward Lebanon as well as Middletown. This shower's moving just to the north of you in Middletown, so pretty soon you'll start to dry out, but we do have that rain that's working its way out of Butler County. Lebanon right now still seeing that downpour moving through. No thunder or lightning with this at this point. Clarksville also seeing some of that light rain. Now as we head into the overnight time frame, what looks like to happen is we end up seeing some development of thunderstorms that could end up doing what we call training, which means that we end up seeing thunderstorms moving over the same area repeatedly, and that leads to a flooding concern. So for tonight, we actually have a flood watch now in effect through tomorrow morning as well. This does include Switzerland County in Indiana, as well as Gallatin, Carroll County as well, and then into Owen County and Grant County in Kentucky. So right now, that's where that flood watch is in effect. As we head throughout the overnight time frame, we're going to start to see that heavy rain moving in. Some communities could see as much as 1 to 3 inches of rain tonight alone. Until then, this evening and through the rest of really that early evening time frame pre-sunset, we're looking at the chance of a spotty downpour. You're really going to feel that steamy heat, but the heavy rain threat ramps up significantly after the sun starts to go down. So once we get closer to about 11 o'clock or midnight, we begin to see those thunderstorms moving in, and there is that chance again for that heavy rain. So coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you more on this flooding concern for the overnight time frame, as well as when this is going to start to wrap up and that heat and humidity really begin to ramp up coming up in a few. After nights, coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you the areas that are most likely to see that heavy rainfall potential and how much you end up seeing by the time you wake up coming up. You're watching Cincinnati's WLWT News 5, and we'll be right back. Tonight, again, not because of what's happening right now, but what's going to be moving through while we sleep and early tomorrow morning. Across Warren County, we still have a little bit of a shower that's trying to make its way up toward Harveysburg. That's going to be approaching Harveysburg here just momentarily. We also have another downpour that's moving through Clinton County, but for the most part, that's starting to wrap up as well. Now, throughout this evening, still could see a stray downpour moving through, but tonight, closer to midnight or later, is really the time frame in which we're looking at for that heavy rain threat, because we're going to end up seeing some redevelopment with some of these thunderstorms that are all across the region right now, and that's going to bring us that potential for heavy rainfall tonight. Some spots could get closer to about 2 to 3 inches of rain, which could lead to that chance for some flash flooding. The potential is there for some rapid rises in creeks and different area waterways, especially right now, the National Weather Service highlighting a couple of our counties. If you are south and east of the 275 loop, good chance that you're under this flood watch for tonight. That does include Switzerland County, that also Kentucky. Again, these spots have the greatest potential, but I do want to reiterate that it looks like that flooding threat potentially is not just limited to these couple of counties. Does seem like we could end up seeing some heavy rain impacting other areas throughout greater Cincinnati as well. So I do think it's a night where a lot of us should just be on guard if we end up seeing that heavy rain rolling through, especially as you hit the road tomorrow morning to get into work, something that you'll definitely want to be aware of and on top of when you head out the door tomorrow morning. All right, so for the next couple hours, fairly quiet outside, but then tonight after midnight, we start to see that heavy rain kind of working its way in. What looks like could happen is we end up seeing what we call training thunderstorms. That means just repeated rounds of heavy rainfall over one location pretty consistently. So with that heavy rain threat is looking to be pretty great for us here tonight. It wraps up early tomorrow morning, closer to about 7 or 8 o'clock. And from there, it gets really steamy outside. Looks like temperatures tomorrow are reaching into the upper 80s and feeling more like the mid 90s tomorrow afternoon, with certainly some peaks of sunshine a possibility after this rain wraps up. Now, I mentioned earlier there is that potential that we end up seeing a heavy rain threat kind of outside of where that flood watch is in effect. Again, we have that flood watch in effect for our select counties, but I do think there's at least the potential that some of these counties outside of that zone could end up with some heavy rainfall. That does include the 275 loop, Cincinnati Metro. That also includes our Kentucky Metro, areas of Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties, as well as possibly as far north as Middletown, areas north of 74, and then possibly even as far southeast as areas along the AA highway. So I do think tonight is just one of those nights we should all be aware and on guard of that potential for some heavy rain to roll through, with that flash flooding concern being a localized issue for some that get those higher totals closer to the 2 to 3 inch range. Otherwise, 1 to 3, that's a possibility for some of us, about 1 to 2, but then those higher totals closer to 2 to 3. So for tomorrow, steamy after we end up seeing those showers and thunderstorms wrapping up. Thursday as well. Thursday looks like it's going to be another really warm one out there, with temperatures feeling more like the mid to upper 90s on Thursday afternoon. Highs reaching into the upper 80s on Thursday, and then Wednesday out there again tomorrow. Around Cincinnati right now, as expected, this time frame was kind of the calm before the storms that are going to roll through here. Those storms back off to our north and west, starting to kind of take shape back out just to the west of Indianapolis. As we get into tonight, midnight or later, we start to see these taking aim at the greater Cincinnati area. The threats they bring, the potential for some heavy rain and some flooding concerns throughout the overnight as well. You see the flood watch scrolling at the top of your screen. That is because we do have that potential for heavy rain. Right now, it looks like the greatest potential for heavy rain likely lies to the south and west of Cincinnati's metro, but everybody in the screen here has that chance for some heavy rainfall, which could lead to some localized flooding concerns. Again, the time frame of this is going to be overnight while we're sleeping into tomorrow morning. So let's get into the futurecast for it. So for the next few hours, we're still going to be pretty quiet and dry, but closer to 11 o'clock or midnight, we start to see these showers and thunderstorms rolling through. These heavy downpours could drop 1 to 3 inches of rain on some towns. Those who get those 2 to 3 inch rainfall totals will be the most likely to see the flooding concerns for tonight. So there is that flash flood threat for the overnight time frame. There is that potential as well that we end up seeing some creeks and streams and waterways potentially rising pretty rapidly tonight too. So coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you how long these threats are going to stick with us here tonight, the heat and humidity that, believe it or not, has yet to peak, and when we face another thunderstorm threat coming up. Ashley? There is going to be that threat for some flooding with the heavy rain that we're expecting to see. This is an idea of what radar could look like overnight while you're sleeping. I'll lay out those threats in the timeline coming up in a few minutes. You're watching Cincinnati's WLWT News 5, and we'll be right back. We get into the day tomorrow. What we're looking at for the overnight time frame, though, is this heavy rainfall that's going to be developing back out to our north and west. You can kind of see the beginning stages of it right now. That's eventually going to start to dive its way into the greater Cincinnati area closer to 11 o'clock or later. Once it starts to move in here, we'll have a pretty good idea of where we're starting to see some of that heavy rain setting up. But we do have a flood watch at this point in effect for areas of greater Cincinnati, southwest of the 275 loop. This includes Switzerland County, Carroll County, Gallatin County, Owen, and Grant County down in Kentucky. This is highlighting the spots that I think have the best potential to see some of those higher totals, but there is a chance that we're not even limited to just these zones that see that heavy rain and even the flood threat tonight. There's going to be the potential for the metro, areas north of 74 in Indiana, all to see that heavy rain threat. Right now, some of those higher totals could be closer to 2 to 3 inches, which falls just tonight alone. and that leads to the chance for some flash flooding overnight while you're sleeping. That leads to that potential for some rapid creek or stream rises, waterway rises. If you live in a flood-prone area, especially in these counties, this is something that you need to keep an eye on as we head into the overnight time frame. Make sure those emergency alerts are turned on. Make sure you've got the WLWT app so that it can send you notifications of any sort of watches or alerts that go into effect if you allow it to. So once we head into 10 o'clock tonight, we'll start to see that rain making its way from our northwestern zones, and that's going to start to dive to the south and east throughout greater Cincinnati. This is going to be some heavy rain that rolls into the area and potentially repeated rounds of it. So that's another issue that we're looking at here tonight, that training thunderstorm probability for us, because that would lead to those higher totals closer to 2 to 3 inches for some spots. But notice that everybody gets in on this heavy rain, and where we see that flooding threat setting up depends on where we end up seeing that training possibility, and then also just who ends up seeing some of those higher totals. Tomorrow morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock, we'll still see some rain around the area. I do think that that's going to be a potential through the morning commute tomorrow, but then we start to dry out. Here's the thing about drying out tomorrow, though. We'll get really steamy sunshine. It's been humid, it's been hot this week, but what we're going to see tomorrow with the heat and humidity building in is going to feel possibly worse than what we felt so far this week, because some of those heat indices tomorrow reach into the middle 90s. I mentioned that potential for other areas seeing that flood threat. Again, where it does look like it is right now concentrated south and west of the 275 loop, I do still think it's worth mentioning that if you live in the metro, if you live in Butler County, areas north of 74, and then even along the AA highway, still not out of the woods, still something that we have to keep a close eye on for the overnight time frame. So for tomorrow, about 87 for our high temperature. That comes with that heat index. So tomorrow afternoon around 95 once things start to clear out for us in terms of the rain wrapping up. More thunderstorms possible Thursday. Friday morning,